Well, welcome to our June edition of Let's Get Growing. It's probably going to quit raining this month, so it'll be time to get growing. Well, in the middle of June, start of June, end of June, you're going to be mowing once a week. Remember, we never want to remove more than 1/3 of the total leaf blade, so don't scalp the lawn. There are several things that you can still plant from seed at this time of year. We have a list on the screen, but don't forget that you can do coxcomb and portulaca from seed. Also, at this time of the season, you can put a lot of things out that have been grown in containers. And check the list on the screen, but in addition, don't forget marigold and periwinkle grow great now that the rain has stopped. Also, while in bloom, you can move those spider lily bulbs because they're almost at the end of their season blooming, and that's when we want to move them while we still remember what color they are. But remember, you only have to divide your lily bulbs about every 3 or 4 years. So tagging them is really going to help you remember what colors we have. Now, we're eventually going to have to start watering, and when we do, we want to soak, not sprinkle. We want to soak it down to at least 3 inches deep. And how do you know when you've done that? We're going to apply at least 1 inch of water once a week, and you test that by sticking a screwdriver in the ground. You can pull it out and see how far down it's gotten wet, or you can use the old tuna can recipe where we put the tuna cans out underneath the sprinklers and see how much water comes out in 30 minutes, and that'll tell you if you're putting out 1 inch of water a week. Speaking of water, if you want to reduce your watering, what do I always advocate? Mulch. So we're going to mulch our newly planted areas, any bare spots that we see, and roses and trees. But let's talk about mulch on trees. Remember, reduce the mulch around trees and increase the mulch in your beds. Also, taper your beds away from the house so the water's not draining into the house. And when you're building up your mulch, remember, start in the back and then bring it down to the front. That way you'll always be draining away from the house. But mulch those areas to prevent the use of water. And now we can prune a little bit. We want to either do any dead or diseased wood. And then perennials, as soon as they've finished blooming, we want to cut those blooms off. And petunias, you want to shear them back so that we can get a whole flush of new blooms, because they're going to play out in the heat if you don't. In addition, you're going to want to cut off any faded flowers before they set to seed, because when plants are making seeds, they're not producing flowers. They'll send all that energy to the seeds. In addition, all the salvias need to be pruned and sheared at this time of year, or they're not going to rebloom. Now you'll do in June the second major fertilization of your lawns, and you'll be wanting to use a 15-5-10 with sulfur-coated urea. All your planting areas are going to need a little bit of help because we've had so much rain. So you can use the same fertilizer you've used on your lawn in your beds. And then also fertilize the mums, and you can start pinching out the buds, and we're going to do that every week for the next 6 weeks. And then also feed those roses every 4 to 6 weeks and prune the old flowers off, unless you're growing the earth kind roses, and they won't go and make rose hips, and they will flower and bloom for you all summer long. And then watch for black spot on your roses and begin your fungicide treatments if you see it. And then the second generation of all the insects like aphids and webworms, etc. Just watch, and you can catch them and use an organic product to get rid of them, and there's several on the market that can help you. Okay, we're going to talk about airplane plants. They're very drought tolerant, and I can actually grow this asparagus fern, airplane plant, and even the Jew in my flower bed at home. They die back in the winter, but they've come back every year for the past 7 years. But I wanted to tell you, look at the difference. This one is what we call the regular airplane plant, and look how wide the leaves are, but they're much thinner than this one. And if you can see, the green is on the inside and the white is on the outside. And these are both the same, but you can see the difference between these two. As you can see, they have these long nodules, and these actually store the water. And today, we're going to repot this airplane, which is overgrown this container and is putting out little puppies, or new airplane plants, into this pretty decorative container. Now, most people would go ahead and plant in this, but it has no hole. This is what we call a decorative container. So I want to put this pot in here, actually this plant, but the pot won't fit. So I found a container that actually fits. I use a product that's fairly low in perlite, which is the white that you see in this mixture. And I put a little bit of soil in the bottom of the container. Now we remove this one, and you can see that it definitely needs to be repotted. We're going to break the root system up. And if it seems to be a little tied up, we can help it. And I like it.
Okay.
I'm going to place it in its new container. Yeah, and fit it in all the way down. And let's see, does it fit? And are we happy? See, it's just airy enough that we can still see our butterfly like this, and we'll have a beautiful plant. Now we know that if a plant is blooming, that it's not going to be making roots. It'll be sending all of its nutrients and all of its energy out here to make new seeds. And we're going to remove these so that we're forcing new roots and foliage to make it more healthy. And the only thing that we have left to do is to water thoroughly. And I found it better to put it in a container and let it soak the water up from the bottom as well as watering from the top. And it'll be the same on this one. We'll water from the bottom and the top. Well, that's our June edition of Let's Get Growing. And I hope that you have a fabulous summer and we're just started growing on.